Texas, and I live in the South for a reason, because I don't get along well with the cold. So we'll see how it is. My name's David Williams. I work right now with Sentai Filmworks. I've been in the anime industry for over 20 years. I was one of the people that helped get AV started.
Oh, Blackwood
and I did all sorts of stuff with them. I was an ADR director for a while. I directed Ian Angel, and Pre-Tier, Angelic Layer.
5 to 4.
Pre-Tier, I love Pre-Tier.
I like magical girls and things.
Dirty Pair. With Sentai, I worked on Clannad After Story. So there's lots and lots of stuff. I can't remember all the titles. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to have our panel. I'm going to talk about some of the shows that we've got coming up and some new ones that we haven't talked about yet. So you'll get to hear about some of the new stuff we've got coming out. And as always, I always have with me some DVDs and Blu-rays that I will give away here. So you might get a free DVD or Blu-ray. I'm going to start off. I'm going to run through some of the things that we've got coming out. So you can hear some of the stuff that you can look forward to, and we'll go into some of the new stuff, and then I'll just open it up and we'll just chat. I can take questions or whatever. Let's see, this is November, so some of the titles that we've got coming out this month. The second season of Hero no Kakara is coming out this month, as well as Nakaimo, my little sister, is among them. And actually, I think both of those, I got in the office early, so I gave them to the convention here for them to either show or give away, whatever they'd like to do with them here. So you might be able to get one from them. Let's see, I also have a couple of license rescues that Sentai picked up. There's Maria Complete Collection and Virgin, which are both coming out this month. And one that a lot of people are really looking forward to, Little Busters, will be out on DVD and Blu-ray this month. And another one, it's actually, we've been selling it at conventions up until now, and I actually have a copy of it here, I think, in my stuff to give away. Yes, I do. Coming out, officially coming out this month, although it's been out for a little while, is the High School of the Dead, Drifters of the Dead OVA. So, if you're really jonesing for some more High School of the Dead, I've got a copy of it here. Unfortunately, it's only 16 minutes long, so it's not a very long OVA. And La Storia della Arcana Familia will be out in this month too, in DVD and Blu-ray. I'm not very good at that title. I don't always do. And one that you can get to see it premiere here at the convention, Girls in Panzer, will be out in December. And I actually brought a copy of it up here. They're going to show it here. This will be the first chance that people get to see the dub. It will start airing on Anime Network Monday. But you can see it here at the con this weekend. And then if I remember right, after they show the disc, they'll add it to the charity auction. So you can go and bid on it. You might be able to get an early copy. Let's see what else in December I have coming out.
All right. So thank you all.
Another license rescues.
Get another year of Baku Con Pyramid.
In December, The Tube comes out on DVD and Blu-ray.
Everywhere else we go.
In December,
Now you don't have
as
to go
well
home,
as
but you can't stay here.
the Gotcha Man series.
Oh yeah. No wait.
That's coming out on DVD and Blu-ray.
Stay out of the hall.
And they actually have copies of that here at the convention.
Next film I think is
Kokoro Connect comes out in December.
Yeah,
As well as the first collection of Pet Girl of So. And Humanity That Has Declined will be out this summer. Let's see, for January, we'll get to, let's see, that's 2013, this is 2014. Okay, January, we've got Utono Prince Samo 1000%.
That's like my ultimate favorite anime of all time, and I actually have a strap of one of the characters on my back.
You do? Yeah.
I was so excited. Like, I heard that Sentai had picked up the DVDs to release it in America, and I was like, okay, there's a Sentai panel here.
I was actually working on that disc right before I left for the January on DVD and Blu-ray. Let's see, what else I got January here. I've got Taisho Baseball Girls is going to be getting a Blu-ray release in January. As well as a really old school title that will be releasing the full collection of Kashan will be out on DVD and Blu-ray. That's a very old school title. Medaka Box Abnormal, the second season of Medaka Box will be out in January. And we'll be releasing Maria Hollick complete collection on DVD and Blu-ray in January as well. February titles that we've announced so far, the second season of AKB 0048 will be out on DVD and Blu-ray in February. I also have a complete collection of M will be out on DVD and Blu-ray in January, or February, I mean, we're in February here. Hidamari Sketch is getting a Blu-ray release in February. Let's see what I got here. Time Bokon will be out, the OVA collection will be out in February, as well as the Girls on Panzer OVAs will be released on DVD and Blu-ray in February. And Love, Election, and Chocolates will be out in February as well.
Are these sub? Which one is sub?
Let me see if I can hear. Everything is going to be dubbed with the exception, I believe, of Hidamari Sketch. All the ones in February, I believe, are dubbed with that exception. January, Prince Sama is subtitled disc. Taisho is a subtitled disc. I think that's it. I think all the others have dubs undubbed. The TV series is out next month, and the OVAs will be out in February. Okay. And like I said, I don't know if you were in here earlier, I mentioned it. They're showing it here at the convention, actually. So they have it on the schedule. Now, some stuff that we've got in that we have not talked about. That's all stuff that we've actually solicited already and have talked about. Some stuff that I've got. Pull up my little note that they sent me here.
Alright, we can do all that stuff.
Oh, here we go. Some things that are coming out in March that we've not talked about yet. Pet Girl of Sakuso Collection 2, Season 2, will be out subtitled on DVD and Blu-ray in March. We will be doing a Blu-ray subtitled release of To Love Brood, Season 1. Marduk Scramble 3 movie will finally be out in March in both subbed and dubbed versions on DVD and Blu-ray as well. So those are some of the new things that we've got coming out in March. And at this point, I will open it up and take questions and chat. Does anybody have any questions about for Sentai? No? Yeah.
I was just wondering, you mentioned Hidamari Sketch, but
Yeah.
I know there's like several seasons of that. Do you have licensed all of them, or
We have
just the first?
If I can remember, no, we've got the first. I think there's like we've got like 3 of them. I think. I believe. I'm trying to remember if that's all there is right now or not. I don't
I'm trying to remember. So like I'm running through the titles in my head, but
Yeah,
they're
that's what
not connecting.
I'm trying to picture them on my table when I'm generally in the dealer's room selling them. So, but we do have. We're just doing the first season coming out at that point. But we will be doing 2 and 3 as well. So.
All right, awesome.
Oh, yeah, I can use it. The room's small enough. I don't really probably need it, and I do like to be able to move around up here. So. Everybody can hear me fine, right?
Battery for the wireless?
I think we're all right. Okay. Anyone else have a question? Yeah.
So Funimation has Attack on Titan, and for the most part, that's like this new scale towards like Full Metal Alchemist. So from like a Sentai standpoint, when the competition has something that you know is going to be something that's big, because it's big,
Yeah.
how do you go from your standpoint to say, all right, do we want to have some more action titles to kind of compete against it, or do you want to like back off a little bit during those kinds of...
That's actually a very good question. You know, you don't really base what you're licensing on what the other company is doing at that particular time. What we look for, well, the first thing you're going to have to look at is what's being produced in Japan. Right. Okay. And are they making anything that would fit that or not? What we normally do is we'll watch the trends. What are fans interested in? That's one reason why I come to the conventions and I like to sit and just chat with all of you, because I get to see what genres are moving into interest at the time. Where's fandom going? What are they looking for? So it's not so much that we might look at what Funimation might be doing, as more about where do we think things are going, and what are the Japanese producing at that time. That will have more of an effect on what we decide to license and pick up than what somebody else, one of the other companies might have released. Yeah.
Why are some released and with just subtitles and dub, and then others are like released with the
Why are
dubs
some
and
subtitled only
Yeah.
and some get dubbed? The reason for that is economics, basically.
Yeah.
The titles that are subtitled only are generally titles that aren't as popular. They don't sell as much, so that we can't actually afford to do the dub. They don't support a dub release for them. But there's still fans out there that would like to see them, and we'd like to bring them out to them. So our solution for that is to do them as subtitled only. Occasionally, you'll get one that we think is going to be like that, and we'll do a sub for it, and it'll just go crazy, and it'll sell a lot. And then we'll look at it and may go back and do a dub at another point for it. But most of the cases, that's the main reason. The bigger titles, the ones that are going to sell enough that can actually, then we can afford to do a dub for it, we can do that. And the ones that are subtitled only are just the titles that are smaller.
ah.
That's kind of a related question.
Yeah.
Utano Prince Song is one of the ones that does not have a dub. When I first read that it was going to be sub only, I wondered if that was because of all the singing in it. So then I was wondering if you, like, in the event that an anime that has a lot of singing does get a dub, do you do like the whole songs over in English?
Very good. It depends on the show. There have been, the songs in the shows can be difficult to deal with. One of the shows that I worked on when I was at ADV was Narima Daikon Brothers, which is probably one of the very first musical animes that ever came out. And that one, we decided, I mean, you've got to do the songs in that one. You can't get away with it. And one of the things that we did was you look at, hey, can your actors sing that you have? Does your voice pool have the talent for singing? Do you have people who can direct singing, who know how to handle working with singing? So there's a lot of factors that go into it. Also, will the Japanese let you do it? Do you have to leave the music as is? With Narima Daikon Brothers, actually, I knew that Chris Ayers, Greg Ayers' brother, is a director in theater, and he directs musical theater, stage productions and whatnot. And so we talked to him, and he came to work for us at that time to direct Narima Daikon Brothers for us. So we knew he would have the skills and the talent to handle the songs. But most of the time, that doesn't really play into whether we're going to dub a show or not. It's just whether we will dub the songs or not. So, yeah.
Hey, what's the process of choosing who acts?
Who acts and whatnot? That's auditioning. What we do, or at least what I do when I'm directing, is I get really familiar with the show. I go through all the episodes of the shows, I go through all the scripts, I try and get as much knowledge about the show as I possibly can, about the characters there, what they're like, what they're trying to do in the show, what we feel like they should sound like. And then I will start calling in actors. And I will say, come in, I've got some parts I want you to audition for. I will give them a scene with the character that I'm interested in them for, and have them record the part. We'll generally go through it multiple times so they can kind of get an idea of the character, find the right voice for it. So I'll record them for multiple parts generally and multiple actors for the same part. After I've done all of that audition work, then what I'll do is I will sit down with the audio engineer and we'll play through those scenes. And I'll say, let's take this person's voice and that person's voice, because once I find a voice that works for a character, then I want to make sure that that works well with all the other characters that are in the show, that they don't seem to clash or anything. So I'll start playing all the voices together from the different auditions. And from that, we'll pick the ones that seem to work the best. And then we'll cast those people in those parts. So that's basically how I do it. Now, a lot of other places may do it differently. Some of them, sometimes you can look at a character and you just know that this particular voice actor is going to, they're going to nail that one. And sometimes you get really surprised. I was doing Najika Blitz Tactics, and the voice actor I ended up casting for Najika, I was like, well, she does generally these kids and other parts like that. She generally doesn't do this, but I'll go ahead and audition her for it just for the heck of it, because I don't really expect her to be able to do it. And she came off and gave me a voice that I was just like, oh my God, that's perfect. I'm glad I auditioned you for this, because it's exactly what I want, you know. So occasionally you get surprised. Yes, Gabriel.
How's the social media guy?
How's the social media guy?
Yes, and are we going to get to see him at another convention?
Christian is our social media person. He's handling everything on Facebook and Twitter and whatnot. He's great. He's doing great. And you will probably get to see him at more conventions, yes. Primarily, I think Christian will probably be at the bigger ones.
Right.
So yeah, he was like at AX this year, and that was his first time to get up in front of. He was very nervous, and so I told him, I was like, it's very easy. Just get up. Just remember, you're just a fan too. You know, they're fans, you're a fan. No big deal. Don't worry about it. And so that was his first time, and he had a good time. He enjoyed it. He came out, did Otakon with me as well. And so I'm sure you'll see him around.
Well, tell him we say hello.
I will tell him. He'll be happy to hear it. Who else? Anyone else? Yeah, I can talk about anything. I mean, doesn't have to be.
I noticed, well, I'm really into novels.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, especially like the dating romantic ones. I know those are kind of like laughed at, but I like them. I noticed that Sentai localizes anime for a bunch of them. Like, not only Tano Princess, but you also said Hero no Akira, and that Arcana something familial.
Yeah.
You also have an older one, Katsuoki.
Yes.
All of those are romancing games, or anime based on romancing games. Is that something like a conscious decision? You were like, oh, I see these games are doing well in Japan. Let's grab all the games. Where is it differences?
It just kind of depends on the titles. It seems like you go in cycles where you'll end up with a bunch of this particular type for a while, and then you might move over here. Those are all ones that we've looked at that I have talked with fans, and I know that there's fans that are interested in
Oh
them,
yeah, that's like
and that would like to
my
see
group
them.
of online friends. Every time we do anime for like one of those dating games, we're like, yes, another one. People are noticing our game.
There are a lot of fans for those shows, and so we like to be able to bring them out. So that's.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
We appreciate you very much. Every time
I'm
we do
glad you're enjoying it.
Every time we do an announcement, we're always so excited.
I have been dealing with anime for so long. I was an anime fan long before I started working in the industry, long before there was an anime industry in the U.S. So there's a lot of shows that I really love, and I love being able to get those out. And this is why we started the companies to begin with, is because we really liked the shows, and we wanted to share them and get them out to more people so that everybody can try and enjoy them. I like it when somebody is really enjoying it. Who else? Yeah.
Personal thoughts on the Daisuke website. It started off with a big bang, but it hasn't really done anything recently. Do you think they're just it's withering, or do you think someone from Japan's gonna turn it around, or they're gonna say, yeah, let's stay on Crunchyroll or go through?
The Daisuke site, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I don't know how they're, not being a part of their company, I can't really say
from the outside,
what's going on inside there. I wish everybody the best of luck. I like like to see, one, I like to see more anime out there. Two, I think that I've got a lot of friends that work for the other companies. We might get in, I always say, we might get in and fight tooth and nail for a particular title, but when it's over with and it's been awarded to one of the companies, we'll all go out and have dinner together. So I like to see them. We'll see how they do it. Yeah.
Something I've noticed a lot more over the last few years is anime cropping up on networks they might not have normally been on, and just the popularity of animation for even making American shows. I was wondering if you had any thoughts on the future of Japanese anime being brought over to more of a mainstream audience here in the U.S. Do you see that opening up, or is that just something, I don't know?
Okay, that actually gets brought up quite a bit, the mainstreaming of anime and whether it's going to be, it's actually, in my opinion, it's come a long way. When I started as an anime fan, there was no U.S. industry over here, there was no anime industry that was licensing anything. The first anime conventions, the first really major anime convention that had lots of Japanese guests and everything was Anime Con 91 out in San Jose. And I think all of fandom in the U.S. at that time was there. They had about 2,000 people, I think. I think that was pretty much every fan in the U.S. at the time. Now you've got like Anime Expo that's hitting 60 and 70,000 people. Otakon, they were up 20, 30,000 and whatnot. Fandom, you see anime on Cartoon Network, on Showtime, on HBO, it's been on Sci-Fi Channel. It's streaming online now with like Anime Network and Crunchyroll, and there are companies that are supporting it. When I was importing anime in the early days, the only thing I could do was buy a Laserdisc or a VHS tape and have it imported from Japan. Well, Japanese prices are such that you would buy a Laserdisc and you'd have one 30-minute episode and you'd spend about $100 for that. And now you can get an entire series for, 20 bucks.
I guess sort of a follow-up to that, because I would agree, is now that the American market or the Western market, I don't know how they exactly see it, is growing and there's more of an industry side here. How is that affecting the field of animation that's being produced? Is it still mostly being produced as a home effort for the people there, and if it sells well elsewhere, that's good, or is it starting to become, how can we make this?
They do take into account the foreign market when they're producing something. You see shows, and it's going to depend on the production. Some productions, for a particular title and whatnot, they're going to pay a little more attention for the foreign market than another show might. But they do take into account the foreign market. There's a lot of shows that may be really popular in Japan that turn out to be not so popular here in the U.S., and vice versa. There's a lot of shows that are really big here in the U.S. that aren't so hot in Japan. Big O was an example of that at first. It didn't do really well in Japan, but it made it on Cartoon Network here, and it was really big here in the States. And so they made the second season of that based on the fact that it was really popular here in the States. So they do take that into account. They are looking at that. Anime is if it were to just be supported in Japan right now, it would be probably a lot smaller because their market there is such that their economics are such that they wouldn't be able to produce as much as they could without the foreign input. So it does play a big part in the production system.
Isn't Space Dandy getting aired in America first?
I don't know the details on that. My understanding was that it was going to be a simulcast and would air here in the States at the same time it was airing in Japan. Now that may have changed, I don't know. I'm not a party to that, but my understanding is, yes, it is being aired really early in the U.S. compared to what you would normally see for a show. So that's, and the whole simulcasting online was a offshoot of the industry wanting to bring shows, get shows over here to the fans quicker, to be able to show those more in line with where they're coming out in Japan. And I think that's probably a trend that you're going to see more often. More and more shows are going to get released over here faster and faster.
from like the past year or two?
What was super successful? Those same shows. High School in the Dig, still a phenomenal show. It still sells really well for us. Angel Beats is doing really well. Another has been a really good show for us this year so far, and that one just came out. Another is another good show. That one was described. I describe that as imagine Stephen King is Japanese, and he wrote Final Destination. It's perfect. So that's my description of Another. Another has been a really big title for us. God, there's a lot. There's so we're doing really good. I mean, we're really happy with the way. Anyone else?
I'm not going to be in this area.
Actually they've some of the newer dubs, they've got people coming in from out of Costa they're working on. The Girls in Panzer dub actually has some people from up in Austin, and one person who was a voice actor that hasn't worked with us in a long time is in there. I'm really glad to see that. Is Jessica Calvello. She's in the Girls in Panzer dub, and it's really good to hear her voice in one of our shows. It's nice having her back in the talent pool. And actually, some of the voice actors that you may think of as Houston actors are actually from up in Dallas. Like Monica Rial lives in Dallas technically. She used to live in Houston. She comes down, but actually they're opening up and bringing in more. Yeah, the ones that are in Dallas or Austin or whatnot, they're more likely to work with because they're nearby. They can get down easier. Ones on the West Coast or the East Coast are a little more difficult. Now, a lot of the dubs that Seraphim works on for Sentai, they actually contract out to other studios. For like the K-On! Was done with Bang Zoom because that's where the original cast was. And the Queen's Blade Rebellion was done up in New York, since that's where the cast was done for that. But yeah, they're actually bringing in some of the other from some of the other. Yeah.
A while back, you announced that you had a deal with Tatsunoko, and that's your Time Boken and your Gatchaman.
The Gatchaman, the Kashan is.
Yeah. So for that, usually you said you're like, I think you said there was like 11 titles or something around there.
I really don't remember how many.
Right. Yeah. So you said that when you do those kind of deals where you say, up front you say we're doing 11 titles. When you have those kind of deals, is like they look at your entire library and say, okay, now if we said 11, let's see which of those 11 we want to pick, because I don't think you announced all of them, or you just kind of.
No, we haven't announced all of the titles. No, in that particular case, you're looking at particular titles. You pick them out.
Oh, you pick.
Okay. It's not going to say, okay, we're going to buy 11 of them, and now we're going to go pick out what those 11 are. No. You pick them out in advance.
So for those ones that you haven't announced, is that because you're doing all the other stuff first because you have so much on your list, and then you're going to say, we're going to go
That's pretty
down
much
the
the
road?
way it is. We've announced that we've made the deal with them,
Okay.
and that as we do the other titles, we'll announce what those titles are.
I do kind of appreciate we announce them and then, in 3 months they're here, rather than the.
That's we found that a lot of the fans really like that. I like to be able to make the announcements, and then real soon, right after we do that, you get to go online, you can put in your pre-orders, the discs will be out right away. I find that the old way of doing it, where you make an announcement and then years later the disc came out, everybody forget about it. So this way it's fresh and new, and all the fans that I've talked to all tell me the same thing, that they really like that. So that's kind of the way we do it.
That's why usually at the end of the sentence.
Anyone else? Yeah. Doctor?
Determine when it's going to be a Sentai release, second release.
Okay. Well, first off, He's asking, how do we decide if it's going to be Sentai, Section 23, or me? All right, first off, they're all separate companies. They actually have different owners. Sentai licensed titles for Sentai. Okay? Made in Japan is owned by different people. Licensed titles for Made in Japan, and they will compete with each other for titles. Section 23 doesn't really license anything. Section 23 is a distribution. They're like a wholesaler. If you're familiar with the way video market works, they're like Ingram or Diamond or whatnot. So they actually have a contract with Sentai and with Made in Japan, Switchblade Pictures, several others, that they will take their titles and get them to retail, distribute them to retail. So it's not a matter of like there's all of us sitting there deciding, okay, we're going to get this. They're all different companies. They're actually separate companies that are owned by different people. It's just Section 23 handles the distribution, has contracts to handle it. Section 23 actually still distributes. A lot of people don't realize it. They still distribute stuff for ADV. ADV as a company still exists. They still distribute some stuff for them too under contract. Cerebral Digital is actually a production house in Houston that does, and they don't do just anime, they do other stuff too. They're a full-on video production company in Houston that is contracted to do the production work for like Sentai and some of the other ones. That's how that works. Yeah.
So before we talked about like putting anime on TV and the internet, Funimation recently has kind of been doing movie theaters as a little bit more of a promotion, but I haven't seen as much from the Sentai and Section 23. So, you know, is that where is there going to be a little bit more towards that movie promotion, or is there too much barriers?
We look at it. It's not that there's so much barriers towards movie promotion. It's more a matter of the titles and the content. Okay, if we have something that we think would be appropriate, we'll look at that. But most of the stuff we have really is primarily TV series and things like that. What we do, and we work with several places for this, particularly in Houston, it's really easy. We work with some of the theaters like Alamo Draft House in Houston. We will do special premieres there where we will do episodes for the series, get the actors or some of the directors there. They will have an anime night there where they will just show a lot of the series and episodes. And there are several of those around. If we get an appropriate movie or something, we would look at theatrical releases and whatnot. Would definitely be an option we would consider. Yeah.
I remember animes like Duel Master and Ghost Stories, which was an ADV title, I believe. Remember how silly it was?
Yes, I do.
When do you decide if it has to be a silly dub or a serious dub?
That is going to be kind of up to the producer of the series and the Japanese, and how they decide they want to handle it over here in the States. Remember, the Japanese, it's their show. They get to decide everything about the production. If they can decide how you're going to market it, how they want it dubbed, or how they want it released. I mean, it's their show. They get to approve everything along the step of the way. So it's going to be a question of, they're going to discuss how we're going to push this show. What parts of it do we think will sell as is? What do we need to change anything? Do we need to work with it? My personal preference, I don't like to change anything in the show. I like to leave it as is, as much as possible. We certainly don't do any editing of the shows. And I would like to leave as much of the story as the Japanese produced it. Because in my opinion, the Japanese know how to do good stories. That's what got me into anime to begin with. Their stories can really pull me in. Their characters are wonderful. So I like to let them do what they do best. And then we'll do what we do best, which is doing the localization and packaging and promoting it here in the States. So I think that's the way I like to work with it best. Yeah.
I was going to say, I guess sort of just off that topic slightly, how do you feel about small changes, like especially idioms I know get changed a lot because there might not be because either there might be an idiom in this country that everyone's aware of that means the same thing as the idiom but they wouldn't get it there, or there might not be a compatible one and I don't know how.
Yeah, another difficult one to deal with are puns.
Yeah.
Puns are really difficult, especially because quite often in Japanese, you might get a pun that's based on the shape of the kanji for that particular word. You know, it's not, and that doesn't really work here in the States. So puns can be really difficult. You try and look for something that is similar along the same basic idea. Occasionally, if you can't find anything, you may go with the straight translation, but put a note up there explaining it. It's just, that kind of stuff can be really difficult to work with. And when you run across a show that's loaded with them, you're kind of like, oh, okay, what are we going to do? And it's going to be done on a case-by-case basis. What can we do in this particular case? What can we find that will work for us? Yeah.
Do you like leaving off releases?
You know, it varies. It depends. There's some shows where we leave them in and some where we take them out. And we look at that in the same way, as a case-by-case basis. Is it appropriate? Is it something about the way the particular character talks that we need to leave them in? Because that kind of denotes a difference between the way the characters are treating each other and stuff. So that's another thing that's done on a case-by-case basis. We look at it and see which way seems to work best. Yeah.
I was wondering, did you work on Excel Saga? Or,
Yes.
okay, so going back to like the puns and everything, how did that work out?
That was a nightmare to work on. Actually, I loved working on Excel Saga. Matt Greenfield was the ADR director for that show, and Jessica worked on as Excel and whatnot. That show was a lot of fun to work on, and I know that they had all sorts of situations that they had to deal with. There's one scene where Excel is trying to speak English, and so it was like, well, our actors are English and they are speaking English, so how are we going to deal with that? I think if you watch the dub, I think they did a really good job. The part of Excel that I enjoyed the most, and a lot of people don't see it these days because you've got to have the really early release of Excel. I was working on the DVDs for Excel, and it was such a wacky show, we decided we were going to do wacky things with the DVDs. So if you've got, the later releases, that was all removed. But the earlier releases, we would do things, I did things in there like, we stuck Easter eggs all through it. We had commercials for like, I don't remember what all was in there, like Minchi soup and things like that. I had the menus, if you did a certain combination on the menu for the DVD, everything flipped upside down and you had to work the menu backwards. I mean, just weird random stuff. And that was a lot of fun to do.
I have that DVD set, the old one, so.
That's a good one. All the little extras and the Easter eggs on there, that was a lot of fun. The pop-up vid notes that we did for that was something that I had been wanting to do for a long time. And when DVD finally came out, I was like, I want to do these pop-up vid notes. I've got an idea for how to do them, but I wanted to test them on something. All right, so I wanted to try and see what can I come up with that I could test it. I just want to do a little test to see if this idea would actually work. So I was driving home from work one day, and I was working on another show at the time. It was a really short show. We were going to put it on DVD. Didn't have any extras or anything. It was real short. I'm like, you know, we need something else on there. I need to do something. And I'm like thinking about the Excel pop-up idea and da-da-da-da-da. All of a sudden I thought, I know, and this will give me a chance to test out the Excel idea. So for the show Plastic Metal, I came up with the jiggle game. And we decided since there's a lot of bouncing in that show, we would put up a little counter that would count the number of times that they jiggle.
I remember that from Burn Up XS.
Yes, we did it in Burn Up XS too, except I took it up a notch. In Plastic Little, we did it, and I went back the next day, I told the art department, I said, all right, here's what I'm going to do. I want to try this out. I'm going to need you to draw me a little icon or something up there with the numbers so that I can display that as we're counting them. And what they gave me back just kind of, I was like, Whoa, okay, that wasn't really what I was expecting, but it'll work for the show. This is a little set of, like that, the numbers in there. And then you're right, we did that for Burn Up as well. And in there, though, I took it up an extra notch. We did a separate counter for each girl. And we carried them all the way through the whole series, so that you get, at the end of it, you got the total count all the way through all the episodes.
You remember what the total count was for?
I do not. I would have to go and pull up one of the discs and look, because I don't actually remember it. I do know that for Plastic Little, I sat there and framed through each frame of the show, and I had to decide, okay, does that count as a jiggle or not? What do we? So we finally decided one complete up and down was a jiggle. So if it just meant part way, it didn't count.
So you were the final judge.
I was the final judge on what was a jiggle. Yes, I had to sit there and judge what was a jiggle. When it came to Burn Up, though, actually I passed that on to somebody else. I had to sit there and count all of them. It's like, yeah, I've counted enough jiggles.
Tough job, but someone's got to do it.
Yeah.
It's a tough job. So that's what it's like being an anime fan, working in the industry.
I remember watching it sometimes, and I would hear the ding come up, but there wouldn't be any bounce. But I knew it was probably just my DVD player, or it was probably psychological because I watched one
It's
whole.
like Pavlov's bell. I heard a ding. There's got to be a jiggle somewhere. Where was the jiggle? It was just really quick.
Yep.
It was a subliminal jiggle. Yeah.
How was the Anime Network on? I used to see that on cable. It used to be great. And they kicked them off of Comcast, or I don't know, they had a disagreement. I don't see them anymore. I know it's on the web.
They're actually, yeah, they're online. They're online. They're still actually on a lot of cable networks. And
They used to say, write your cable company and play.
yeah, I've heard that they are in talks with Comcast about putting it back on there and whatnot.
Threw who off?
I don't know any of the details on that.
That's when Funimation showed up with this.
Yeah, but yeah, no, my understanding is that they are in talks with Comcast about putting it back up on there.
How do they do it?
My understanding is they're doing good. I don't get to talk to anybody from Anime Network much these days. They're another place. Yeah, they're another company. They're all on their own. Yeah, they're all on their own over there, so I don't really get to talk to them much. I get every once in a while I'll run into one of them and chat with them. And I know that Sentai, we license a bunch of our stuff to them for them to show on the website, and they still do a lot of other cable companies. So they're on the generally they're on the video on demand. They don't do the linear channel.
Right, I remember they dropped.
Canceled. They dropped that, but they do the video on demand stuff with a lot of the cable companies.
So how is Sentai doing compared to the rest of the industry? I know a few years ago it was like horrible. Has it turned around completely, or everyone's?
I think the industry as a whole is doing all right. It's still, it's never going to be like it was in its heyday, I believe. It was, and that's probably a good thing because at the peak in 2004, 2005, you had companies that were jumping in it left and right. Everybody was bidding up titles through the sky, and they were just anything they could grab and throw out there. They were trying to. So I think it's much better now. It's matured quite a bit. They've learned. The Japanese have learned that yeah, it was nice getting these huge license fees for the shows, but it wasn't sustainable. And it's better for the industry if we're a little more sensible about things. So I think the industry as overall has matured quite a bit. I'm not going anywhere. I've been in this industry for far too long, and one way or another, I'm going to stay in it.
I mean, it seems like they've set out with about four players for the most part that do the
Yeah, it's shrunk down because I think that the market, it's still, as big as it's become, it's still a niche, okay? It's not really Hollywood. So the market couldn't support as many companies as were out there, and it couldn't support them as big as they were trying to grow. I know all the companies were trying to grow really big, and trying to be big media companies, and that just wasn't sustainable. So now I think the way that we've set things up and that we're doing it now with Sentai, I think is much better for the industry as a whole, and for fandom too, because we can stay out there and keep up. I think overall it's a much better place than it used to be. Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about Anime Network that's on the internet, is that something like a service you have to pay for, like Hulu or Netflix?
They have, it's like Hulu, Netflix, it's like Crunchyroll. They have, I believe they have a free, they have some stuff that's up there available for free, and then they also have like a subscription service, so you can subscribe to it for a monthly fee and just watch everything. But yeah, it's available for streaming on the web. Sentai, we do stuff with Anime Network, we do stuff with Crunchyroll, we do stuff with iTunes, there's Xbox and PlayStation Networks, Hulu. Hulu is a really great place. I love getting our anime up on Hulu. Netflix, pretty much anywhere that we can get anime out there to the fans, we're happy to get it out there. It's still selling DVDs and Blu-rays. That's still our bread and butter. That's the streaming is good, and I see the streaming as it's growing, but it still doesn't support productions of shows. Just but any place that we can get a show out there for the fans to enjoy, we're happy to work with. So, anyone else? Yeah. Yeah.
So what considerations do you take into it when that's kind of dark, gory genre? So when you're localizing, do you have to consider like Japanese taste, American taste, or what you license?
We do have to take that into account. Japanese taste and American taste when you're working on horror or when you're working on any particular genre can have an effect on things. One of the things that we did with another is we got somebody who really knows horror films and is a big fan of both Japanese and American shows to work on. That's Chris Ayers. And he can sit there and talk about all the different horror shows and whatnot. So we figured he would be a really good one for working on that. So he, I think he brought a really good touch to it. It's been well received so far. Somebody you over here?
Actually, here is that.
Okay, we'll still have a little bit of time yet. Anyone else? You're all enjoying? Here I am. Not from Texas. Yeah, y'all enjoying? Y'all. My Texan is showing through. I'm actually technically Californian because I was born in California, but moved out of California as fast as I could. I think I was about 2 when we moved. I like to go back and visit California, but I don't want to live there. Yeah.
I guess, do you have a genre you think is either the easiest to work with, or is your favorite to work with, or is it really a series by series?
Okay, there's not a genre that I could say is easy or hard to work with. That would depend just on the show. As far as favorite, I'm personal favorite. I like science fiction. I'm a big sci-fi. I like particularly hardcore science fiction. So I like a lot of the shows that anything that falls into that category is something that's going to grab my attention before a high school show, a high school harem show. So my personal preference is for things like I'm a fan of Gundam. I like the Gundam series, particularly UC Gundam. Not a big fan of Wing. Sorry, Wing fans. Or Gundam G. No. But I like Gundam. I like that. Just the sci-fi stories are intense. And then the other one that I kind of get a kick out of, and you don't really see a lot in anime, is I'm a big fan of like James Bond espionage stories and all. That's why I like working on Najika. Najika Blitz Tactics. Once you got past all the panty shots, there's actually a good story in there. And it's a good, they're basically spies essentially, and there's a good little story in there. And actually working on it, we did get past the panty shots, because at one point, we had just finished recording one of the episodes, and I stopped and I turned to the audio engineer, and I was like, wait a minute, there weren't any panties in that episode. And he's like, there weren't. And we went back through, and there were. There were lots of panty shots in it. but we had gotten where we were more into the story, so that we didn't notice them. We were paying more attention to the story.
Do you ever,
So those are the kinds of things that I tend to enjoy. Or fantasy. I really enjoyed the original Record of Lodoss War when it first came out.
Like when I first got into anime, that was one of the like cool.
But I was kind of irked that I felt like they did a hook and then, I mean, the first episode was really great with all this action and all the, and then they cut, well, this one takes place back at this part, now we're going to cut to this part of the series and you're going to go through all of this. I was like, or things like, another one that I really enjoyed was Area 88. I like the stories where you get the interaction of the characters and the things that he goes through, that he suffers through. Really, the way it was released in Japan, I like better than the way it was released in the U.S. because they broke it up a little differently, and I think that it has more impact, more emotional impact.
did you ever see Legends of the Galactic Heroes?
Yes, I have seen some Legends of the Galactic. I would love to have done Legends of the Galactic Heroes and released it over here.
That would be cool.
But they want a lot of money for the series, and it's really not going to sell as well as some. I like the show, but it's not going to do that well. So I would love to be able to work on it. The German talking heads in space show is really all.
Just what happened to this Star Wars?
Star Wars, the anime. Okay.
I've come this right at the beginning, but I know you're watching, but are you a decision independent company where you have to decide what shows come over?
I do have input on the stuff that actually gets brought over, yes. One of the things that I've done, or I was doing in ADV, and I've been doing ever since we started the company, is evaluating the different titles, looking at, and sometimes you don't have a whole lot to go on. Quite often we're looking at titles, and I'll actually at 2 o'clock I've got a panel on anime production where I'll go through the whole process, from licensing the show, from negotiating with the Japanese all the way through to bringing it over to all the production work and everything.
What percentage of the titles that you've selected were, I guess, business successes? You know,
I like to say all of them. 100%. I'm not perfect. No, I don't know. There are some that it's not so much that I would say they weren't successes. It's just that I didn't have as big an expectation. A lot of the shows, and
they all made money.
You've gotten to the point now. We've been in it so long that you can generally look at a show and have a pretty good idea of how well it's going to be. It's going to be really big or not. Every once in a while, you might get one that surprises you. It doesn't better than you expected. You might get one that's a little less than expected, but you can generally guess pretty good. That's like, I'm part of that process. For example, when I was at ADV, John Redford, who's the owner of ADV, came to me one day. He says, David, I got an episode of a show here. I want you to watch it and tell me what you think. Should I license it or not? So he gave me a VHS tape. I popped it in a player and I watched the first episode, and I took it out and I walked up to him and I was like, John, you should license that show. It's going to sell buttloads. And I never want to see another episode of it again. That show was games. I'm not a big fan of ultra-violent shows. And I watched that first episode and I got to the part where he's hit by the train and his head's flying through the air, spewing blood. I'm dying and this is all. And I was like, oh, I can't take this.
It's gonna sell.
But it's gonna sell. I know this show is gonna be big. Yeah. So, and I have not really watched Gantz since then. I'm just not a big fan of the really violent, bloody shows.
So you don't like high school as good?
Well, you know, that's actually strange because when they first came to me and they said, okay, we got this new show, High School that did, you're not going to like it because there's a lot of blood and everything in it. And they're like, I don't, it's not so much that I have an issue with blood in the shows. It's more a matter of how it's handled and whatnot. What's being done, I actually like High School. The physics in it can be a little...
Bring back the jiggle counter.
Yeah. You know, I talked to a physicist once at a convention who did a panel on the physics of High School. And he's like, to get those bullets to do They had to have broken the speed of sound.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
But I actually enjoyed that show. Yeah.
What about Elfin Lead? Were you involved with that?
I was involved with Elfin Lead. I had Elfin Lead I was able to take a little easier than I was Dance.
Really?
Although I did have at a panel once when we first announced Elfin, they said, how are you going to market this show? It's so bloody and I was like, what do you mean how am I going to market it? I was like, it's got this cute girl, she's very sweet, really cute, loving and all, and then all of a sudden she ripped people's limbs off.
Exactly.
It markets itself. Yeah, it's really good. I think I need to give away some discs. Real quick. Running low on time here, so before I run out of time, let me give away some of our Blu-rays and DVDs that I've got. All right, the way I handle this is I will ask a trivia question. I will ask a trivia question. If you know the answer, raise your hand. Don't yell it out because you won't win and you will give the answer away to everybody else. If you know the answer, raise your hand. The first hand that I see go up, I'll call on you. If you get it right, you win the disc, okay? Okay?
Okay.
All right. All right, let's see what I have here. We'll go through these. I have a Blu-ray of Suratama, which is a fun little show. My daughter loves this show because she's a fan of ducks. And she actually, she does a voice in here for one of the ducks. Let's see. Does anybody know the name of the duck in here?
Tapioca?
Tapioca. Let's see, I have a copy of Campione here. This is good, just hanging out. What can I ask?
It's also really easy. So if you want to read this in
I think I have a copy of that. In Shenkai's new movie, Garden of Words, does anybody know what Taco dreams of doing? What does he... Well, you can give it to somebody else. Make it really happy. Does anybody know?
I couldn't even get a question.
Does anybody in the movie Garden of Words, Shenkai's new movie, and actually we have an autographed copy of it being auctioned off here at the charity auction. What does Takao dream of doing? What's the main character's dream in this show? What does he want to do with his life? Yeah, you want
I just want to take a guess.
What?
You like want to be like a hat designer or a shoe designer or something?
He wants a shoe designer is what he wants to be. Yes. He wants to design shoes. In Marduk Scramble, what's unusual about the characters' names?
Honestly, they read the English and the Japanese.
No?
There's some unique stuff in there.
All right.
So, yeah.
They're all egg related. They're all egg related.
I shouted that out.
Who can solve all of the puzzles in Vibrant?
But this is like really, this is basically like what I'm talking about.
Kaido! The main character. He can solve all the puzzles in Vibrant. That's kind of a trick question, I guess. Let's see. I have K-On! The movie. What's the English name of the band in K-On! Oh, come on. You call yourselves anime fans?
Just take a guess, Barry. Come on. Come on, Barry.
Come on.
You know the answer.
I don't watch the dub though. I just know what it translates to.
What's it translate?
After school tea time?
That's the answer. Let's see. I have a Blu-ray of Kokoro Connect. We'll do something easy here. In the series
That's art, like design. Yep.
Art design, art school, yes. There you go. Thank you. And last but not least, I have my high school that did drifters at the end. I'm going to ask a hard one for this. You haven't been able to get the others so far.
These are derby pair?
Yeah, no, it's dirty pair. That's a dirty pair, though. In Girls Unpanzer, the ORE Girls School Academy starts off with 5 tanks. Can anybody name what those are?
There's the German PZ4, the Tiger Porsche,
the ones they start the series with. There's 5 that they start the series with.
Oh yeah, the Tiger Porsche is the last one they have.
Yes.
So they start with the PZ4, the M3 Lee, the Japanese Chai High 89, I think, 89H,
Good so far.
and
There's 2 more.
the German Jag, because I'm trying to remember, they convert one into a tank destroyer, and it starts out, it's one of the, it's either the Hetzer platform or the smaller Jag platform, the Jag 3 series, and the, okay, I'll try to go to the other one that they have, which is, I should know this. Like World War II tanks.
That is impressive.
Yeah, it's like the entire Jeopardy school.
You are doing really well so far.
I know. I'm trying to picture the other tank, because now it's just like blanking my mind on which.
Well, you're right so far. They've got a Panzer IV. They've got an M3 Lee. They've got a Japanese Type 89. They've got a Stug 3, Assault 3.
Yeah.
And then they've got...
Who teams the other one? Because I'm trying to picture the, like I can't even picture it in my mind. I'm picturing the lineup of their vehicles.
You've done really well so far. You're gonna win it anyway. The last tank is the 38T, the Czechoslovakian 38T.
It's like I couldn't even picture who was crewing
You've
that
done
one.
very, very well.
Thanks. This will actually complete my collection. I have the Blu-ray for the series.
Awesome. I want to thank everybody for coming out. I've got a production panel at 2 o'clock. We'll be talking about the whole production process, from licensing and negotiating with the Japanese all the way through to the ADR recording and DVD and Blu-ray production and streaming and everything. So